Brian Mulroney et Ronald Reagan sont confiants que le sommet de Québec donnera le ton aux nouvelles.
Brian Mulroney and Ronald Reagan are confident that the Quebec summit will set the tone for new relations between Canadians and Americans. But it will not be easy to achieve.
Daniel Lessard dresse un bilan de nos relations avec notre voisin du Sud.
Chaque année, des millions de Canadiens et d'Américains traversent la frontière.
Every year, millions of Canadians and Americans cross the borders. The relations between the two countries are considered good. They have in common numerous interests, such as the American esteem, also shared by the President Reagan, for Anne Murray, for example, or Canadians and their keen interest for Michael Jackson, Gary Carter, or McDonald's restaurants. But we cannot say the same thing about the relations between the two heads of state of the two countries.
Mais, à l'exception peut-être de Pierre Trudeau et Jimmy Carter et de la courte amitié entre John Kennedy et Lester B. Pearson, les relations ont toujours été difficiles. Au début des années 60, John Kennedy et John Diefenbaker...
At the beginning of the 60s, John Kennedy and John Diefenbaker didn't trust each other. After a visit to Ottawa, notes of Kennedy were found in a wastebasket, which were anything but flattering towards Diefenbaker. The Liberals took advantage of the affair to say that the President had called the Prime Minister a son of a bitch. After that, during the Vietnam War, Lester Pearson condemned the United States, and Lyndon Johnson's reply was scathing. President Johnson, during a meeting with the Prime Minister in Chicago, I don't remember the occasion, he gave him a piece of his mind. Between Pierre Trudeau and the various Republican presidents, the relations were never good. We remember the Watergate tapes, in which Richard Nixon made nasty remarks about Trudeau. With Nixon, I think each one had their reservations. They remained coolly friendly to one another, if I can say this. That also applies to Trudeau and Reagan. During the different economic summits, Trudeau was taking the European stance against Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Today, it is quite different between Brian Mulroney and Ronald Reagan. They have, firstly, common Irish blood. There are also, and above all, common economic interests between the two countries. For this reason, Brian Mulroney thinks that the two countries are condemned to understand each other.
This resume of Canadian-US relations lasted 2 minutes and 6 seconds. It contained 22 changes of image, or an average of 1 change of image every 5.7 seconds. The American media analyst Jerry Mander has written a book called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. Amongst his themes are the replacement of experience, the illusion of neutral technology, the walling of awareness, rooms, inside rooms, the inherent need to create need, and the bias toward death. There are 2 principal state and television services in Canada, the French-speaking Radio-Canada and the English-speaking CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Radio-Canada gave us permission to film their news team in action, covering President Reagan's visit to Quebec City. The CBC refused us this permission, saying that there was no connection between the theme of our film and the role of the media.
So, in other words, there are doctors out there saying to women patients, what we see.
Il y a une chose qui est importante. On a il y a des poules, tout ce qui est là-dessus, là, c'est en pool. Tu n'as pas besoin d'envoyer de Kodak.
There are pools. Everything there is on pool. You don't need to send any cameras. Yeah, but the pool, do we record it? Ah, yes. Do you know how it works, the pool?
We join them now, Radio Canada producers and reporters, at a production meeting over breakfast on the morning of Reagan's arrival. Note in these scenes the constant emphasis on control and brevity of time.
En plus de ça, on enregistre la plupart du temps sur des cassettes de 90 minutes.
Besides that, we're recording most of the time on 90-minute cassettes. Time code is important. We're going to synchronize our watches so that everyone has the same time, because if there's a difference of 40 seconds in there, you lose your day. So it's clear we have to be very precise about everything that happens. If you come by saying, I want Mulroney when he scratches his head at 17:02, if it's at 17:02 and 30 seconds, you might miss it.
Mais il faut avoir quand même alimenté à Montréal.
But Montreal will have to be fed anyway. Absolutely. We can't roll. We don't have a cart. You can't roll live. Well, no, you've got one feed line. You can't.
Merci.
Allô, merci.
Non, je pense qu'on peut se permettre. Ouais, c'est que ça t'empêche pas à ce moment-là.
I think we can allow ourselves some linked images, because most of the reporting will be done.
Ils ne feront pas de l'imprévu ce soir.
That doesn't prevent you at that moment from going into the construction of your topo. One thing is certain, there can't be anything unexpected tonight. You can already have all the information from the security agent at that moment, who will give you information on the route they'll take street by street. You can have all that information at that moment, which means then you have almost everything you need as far as text goes. What you don't have is the images. Poached eggs? Raymond knows ahead of time that there are 6 Canadian artists, 6 American artists at that moment, what the show is going to be. Poached eggs for you? He knows ahead of time that Reagan will go behind the curtains at 9:03 at that moment to shake hands. At 9:03, it's too late for us.
$150 million.
We were talking about the problems of tools in this co-op of ours. There is nothing produced here because there is nothing with which to do the work. All these years we have not possessed even a watering can. We don't have kettles, plates, cups and saucers, spoons. All these are not available. Even when the co-op union sends us some spaghetti, we have to borrow saucepans from some families in order to cook. Possession of these articles would encourage us to do our work with much vigor. Our commitment is what keeps us going. And this goes for all the 33 members of this cooperative.
veldig vanskelig, ja. Det en veldig sterk opplevelse. Selv om dette her var en relativt lite atombombe, så er det jo nesten ufattelig hvor store lidelser den påfører dem som blir rammet.
Ja, det går jo opp for meg når jeg ser sånne bilder, at tankene før dem har jo stoppet opp, bare at det hvis det slipper ned en sånn bombe her.
It's almost incomprehensible how much suffering these bombs cause.
Men nå er jeg jo nødt til å innse
Before seeing these pictures, I'd always thought that such a bomb dropped here would mean the end. But now I have to consider all the suffering that follows.
Helt uforskyldt.
I can't bear to think of my own children experiencing that. It's terrible.
Hva føler du, Cornelia, når du ser bildene her?
Det er jo forferdelig, da. Det første gangen jeg ser sånne bilder av
It's the first time I've seen such pictures. The terrible fact is that these people are innocent, and they suffer for the disagreements between the superpowers.
Jeg synes det er veldig fælt, og det at offrene bare er uskyldige mennesker, og at det er dem som skal bli offer for det stormaktene krangler om, da. Det er helt grusomt.
Du, Anne?
To be burnt to death. Your whole body.
Hvordan er å bli brent opp, da? Brent opp hele kroppen.
Og noen bilder her som du, Torkel, synes var... Torkel, la du merke til noen av bildene som du synes var noe feil? Hva var det for et bilde der? Tror du ikke kan finne det?
Torkel, did you notice any pictures you found terrible?
Hva er det?
Alone.
Fordi jeg er alene.
Hvem som blir alene? Hvem er det som blir
Who
alene?
will be alone?
Ja.
Dead.
Hvordan tror du
Is that the worst part? To be alone?
Det.
Er det du synes er det verste, at du blir alene?
There have been 1,603 nuclear detonations worldwide since 1945, of which the United States and the Soviet Union are responsible for 89%. Of these nuclear explosions, at least 100 were exploded in or above the Pacific Ocean by the United States and Britain, and a further 100 by France. There have been marked weather changes in so-called French Polynesia since the French testing began, including 6 severe cyclones which hit Mururoa and Tahiti in 1980 and 1983. It is believed that the results of raising the temperature of the ocean water around Polynesia include heavy rains and mudslides in South America, a reversal of the trade winds, and drought in Australia and Fiji. Most of the people I met around the world had heard absolutely nothing about this connection.
Biwene te fifi, tānei horo o mai, nāni ei te mūri.
Another source of injury is the intensity of the light, like a flash of lightning. When the explosion goes off, even the strength of the midday sun is dimmed. This is the truth that I am telling you. The sun does dim.
An unarmed American cruise missile, being tested over Canada, crashed yesterday when its engine failed to ignite. The crash was the 8th failure in 54 tests of the air-launched weapon, and the second such crash in Canada. Utica, in the central north of New York State, and only a few hours' drive from the border with Canada.
Puts me into mind of when the United States had that problem with Iran, and certain of my co-workers were saying that, you know, we should nuke them. But I think that if they saw these pictures, that their attitude about the use of the nuclear bomb would be different. You know, I mean, it really brings it close to home. And, you know, they're human. I realize that, you know, we were at war with them, but they're human beings just like we are. And it's so, these pictures are so cruel that it's beyond belief. You know, that civilized people would drop any type of bomb on civilians that would do something like this. You know, I can't believe it.
$160.5 million.
Not only the human beings, but also cows, horses, virtually everything was killed. Sometimes I had to walk on the dead bodies because the ground was too hot. I kept saying sorry to them.
My husband Jim and I were active in the 1960s in the peace movement and in the civil rights movement. And the thing that we learned out of the 60s was that the kinds of things that our country was doing then weren't an accident. It wasn't a mistake what we did in Vietnam, and segregation wasn't a mistake. That both of those things grew out of a way of life that was predicated on a resort to violence, and that was predicated on separation between people, so that it was all right for me to look at other people and say that you're not as good as I am, and therefore for my benefit it's okay to annihilate you in some way. As we resisted the war in Vietnam and as we worked in the civil rights movement, we found that the same kind of violence and separation was prevalent in the peace and the civil rights movements. And so there came a time when we had to decide whether or not we thought there was any hope for the world, whether there was any possibility of change at all, or if it was just changing from one corrupt kind of system to another. And I think the thing that gave us hope and that brought us to Kitsap County was the decision of Robert Aldrich, who was the person who designed the Trident missile, to resign his job. He had worked for 16 years at Lockheed in California, designing nuclear weapons, and when he realized what the Trident system was doing, He left his job, gave up the way he earned his living, even though he had 10 children, and about 8 of them were still at home. Now, we happened to know him from anti-war work, and he came to visit us and told us the story of how he had quit his job because his conscience just wouldn't let him design first-strike nuclear weapons. And then he asked us at the end of the story whether or not we knew where the Trident system would be home-ported, and we didn't. But it turned out that it was going to be home-ported right here in Kitsap County, which was only about 90 miles from where we lived at the time. And so that put the whole question into our laps again, the question of violence and nonviolence and resistance. And we met with a number of other people to try and decide whether there was any point anymore in resisting. And what we found was that there wasn't any point in resisting one weapon system, but there was a point in learning to live differently, and as part of that, in resisting a weapon system. And so we began with about 15 other people the campaign against the Trident submarine and missile system, which is about 10 years old now, and which has gone through a number of stages. Right now, the stage is the white train stage, we call it. These tracks are the tracks on which the hydrogen bombs are shipped into the base to be loaded onto the missiles and then put into the submarine. And when we moved into the house here, we discovered that the white trains did go in twice a year. Nobody had seen them before, although they move about every 6 months and have been going for about 20 years.
The white train is assembled at the Pantex plant in Amarillo, northwest Texas. Here the nuclear weapons are loaded onto the wagons. At present, the warheads are destined for nuclear submarine missiles and are taken across America to 2 existing nuclear submarine bases and will soon be taken to a 3rd, which is now being built. Before I made this film, I really knew nothing about these bases. Did you? And what about the locations of all the other sites in the United States and in other countries where nuclear weapons are now stored, each site connected by road or rail? It is believed that 16,000 new nuclear warheads will be manufactured in the United States between 1983 and 1990. If this figure is correct, the Pantex plant in Amarillo is assembling 5 new nuclear warheads a day. $174 million.
そしてとうとう我が家までたどり着けなかった。それで今度は
I tried to reach my home, but in vain, so I decided to go to my sister's home.
リヨンという町までたどり着け
There
な
I
い。
could meet my eldest brother's family,
そしたら
but he had 2 big holes in his head, and his body was burnt all over.
いることはいたんだけ
His
ど
eldest daughter was seriously injured, with her ribs sticking out and her skin dropping off.
そして体も焼けただ。
She died on 6th of August.
浮かれるような姿じゃなかった。
His second child had his lips so swollen that he could hardly speak, and his eyeballs were protruding.
この左
He died the next morning on the 7th August while crying.
そして2本ほど骨がねつけててだからねそしてその骨が時々動くから生きとると。そしてその次の子供は全身焼けただれて目が2センチぐらい飛び出てるんです。そしてね唇も腫れ上がってるからひっついてるのペタッと。だから声は「う」とか「あ」とかしかないわけね。でそしてこの
My brother was brought back to his hometown, and he died there.
目が飛び出て
My younger sister died as well.
朝も待てないで死んでいったということですね。でこの兄さんは36歳だったけども一度はこの姉さんの里に連れて行かれたんだけども、亡くなりました。そしてこの妹も
On Tuesday, July 24th, at 12:20 a.m., the white train leaves Amarillo, Texas, on one of its tri-annual journeys. Its 19 cars include 3 turret cars containing armed guards from the U.S. Department of Energy, 4 buffer cars, 2 engines, a rear wagon, and 12 weapons cars containing an estimated 144 hydrogen bombs or warheads with an explosive force of 100 kilotons each. The entire train, therefore, is equal to 1,152 times the power of the bomb which vaporized Hiroshima.
We are now going to talk about the question of education for the children. Yes, indeed, the children's education. They learn sitting under these trees. They suffer a lot when it rains. We have only these 2 classrooms. There is no roofing material for either.
This school lies a short distance from the border with South Africa and is not far from areas where the MNR have attacked villages, mutilating women and men and kidnapping children.
We are regularly advised that the children must be kept clean and tidy. But this serves no purpose, because clothing is in such short supply. We are therefore asking our guests, if they can, they should help our children with clothing. The government constructed the school? Yes, the school was built by the government. There is no cement, and until now they have not been able to get window panes.
These pictures are of villagers mutilated by the MNR.
Tomorrow, what about you? Have you seen these pictures before? They've never talked to you at school about this?
Yes, once.
What do you see me think, Tamara? Seeing little children suffer like that, we think.
It's cruel.
What do your friends think about it, Tamara?
They just think it's a joke.
They think it's a joke. They don't think that it could happen here.
No.
What do you mean, Tamara, when you say they think it's a joke? What do they say about it?
They just be laughing in class when the teacher be talking about it and talking.
Вот, это школа в Нагасаки, и здесь перед школой в момент взрыва находилось 133 ученика этой школы.
Here is a school in Nagasaki. At the moment of the explosion, there were 133 pupils. They were all killed. This is what is left of them. In Japan, all the bodies were cremated. Due to the radiation? Yes, presumably so. This zone was too dangerous for those alive.
Вот здесь, кстати, еще одна из фотографий. Это фотография, на которой как раз семья, которая кремирует одного из своих.
There is one more picture, a family cremating one of their relatives.
Ну вот мы посмотрели эти фотографии. Вам раньше...
Have you seen similar pictures before?
Видели ли вы такие фотографии?
Like these?
Никогда не видели?
No.
То есть...
So it's the first time you've seen such pictures?
Первый раз, когда вы сталкивались?
Yes.
Именно такие в первый раз?
Были всевозможные фотовыставки.
There were both Soviet and foreign photo exhibitions, but pictures like this I see for the first time. They displayed pictures of the radiation victims taken sometime later. But these pictures are probably the most authentic because they were taken right when it happened.
Достоверны в том плане, что они сняты следом за событиями сразу.
А какие ощущения возникают тогда, когда мы сейчас сидели и смотрели эти фотографии?
What do you feel when you look at these pictures now?
Сейчас, например.
I will say that I felt a lump in my throat, and now I am afraid to utter a word or to give way to my feelings.
Не выдержать просто.
Yes. Ясно.
Affected you. Like it affected me. Because it made me feel like crying, and I just held it back because, there's all these people around, but, my thought was that it could be my kids, like this one here, this little child. And I just wanted you guys to know that if you're feeling that too, that you should be able to speak about what you're feeling, because it's not every day that you have pictures like this on your table. I'm okay. I'm just a little bit sad about the pictures because they are real pictures of real people.
Have any of you actually seen photographs like this before?
I can't say that I have really seen. I think the enlargement of them really is much more something I've never seen. I've never seen anything like this. I've seen in the paper, a few things like the pictures of Vietnam, but I've never seen anything of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So I never have.
Tara, have you seen these pictures before, ever?
What did you think about them, Tara? Do they seem real to you?
In a way.
Do you realize that these were real people that have died, some of them?
Yes.
Have they ever talked about this at your school, Tara?
No. Not really. They haven't talked that much about it. They've talked about war and stuff. My teacher is talking about how Reagan wants to make more bombs, but we already have enough bombs to destroy the world 12 times. She doesn't really talk about people that much.
They've never talked about Hiroshima and Nagasaki to you?
No. No. They haven't. No.
Ron, what about you? Had you ever really seen pictures like this before?
No, I've never seen these kind of pictures. I've seen nothing like this detail. I've seen pictures of far away of the city. It shows the total destruction of the city, but I've never seen close-ups of people's, bodies and stuff like that.
Ellen, have you seen photographs like this before?
Well, I've seen some of them because I lived through the time that this was happening and heard about the bombs. There was so much in the paper about it. Of course, when the second bomb fell, we just thought it was just awful that we had to do that. And nobody could quite understand why we had to do it that way. And then pretty soon the war was over and this was left. And we just felt awfully bad about it.
Not only that, it's very frightening to hear some. I've been around some people and they seem to think, well, war. If we had another war, it will take care of some of our financial problems, our job situations, and it's going to take care of a lot of things. And I just don't feel that they don't understand when they cry for war. I really don't believe that they know what they're saying.
When the white train leaves Amarillo, the main place that it heads for is the Trident submarine base in Bangor, Washington. It's just outside of Seattle. And this is the area where it deposits its missiles for the Trident submarine. This is the field of igloos for the Trident submarine missiles. This is a shot of a Trident submarine at sea. It doesn't look like much in the water. But here in the yard of the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut, this is where they make the Trident submarine, you can get a better sense of their size. This is a christening, and the one in the water here is the one that has just been completed. You can see the sailors standing at attention on the deck. This big tent down here is for officials from the government and from the Electric Boat Company. And here are the workers watching the ceremony. The one in dry dock is just as big as the one in the water, although it looks a lot bigger because you can see the whole thing up in the air. These are the missile ports right in here. You can tell how it's made if you look at these other two coming down the line. The middle section is all the same piece, and then it's capped with a head and a tail. The overall size is 2 football fields, and they say that each Trident submarine carries as much firepower as all the wars in history combined.
I asked each family around the world whether they ever discussed together the atom bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the possibility of nuclear war again in the future. Most of the families replied like this.
Not very often. Seldom. Are you afraid? Yes.
Hvis de skulle ha snakket om det mer i familien og sånn, så tror jeg det har vært likest hvis de har satt oss ned alle sammen rundt et bord og snakket om det, for
If we were to talk more in the family, it would have been better if we had all decided to sit down around this table for a discussion. Because if we just started talking about it, one of us may be doing homework, one may be doing the dishes, and we would not concentrate on the subject. It would have been best if we had decided to sit down and concentrate on this particular subject.
Men jeg har jo hatt et lite problem, det fordi at jeg synes jo at ungene de er små enda. Og som foreldre så er vi veldig redd for å gi dere bare mer angst.
There I have been faced with a bit of a problem, because I feel that you children are too young. We are reluctant to add to your anxiety. I feel it is a natural reaction on the part of parents, and it is difficult to give proper answers, especially when I am having difficulties in offering solutions to the problem.
Særlig vanskelig det fordi at jeg kan liksom ikke gi dem noen løsninger på problemet.
So I just give up.
Jeg bare gir dere enda mer å være redd for.
Family 家族全体で原爆の問題について時々話をされるというようなことはありますか？
ほとんどありませんですね。もう家の中で原爆の話しないし、私自身も家の中であんまり言いとないんですね。
No, within our family circle we don't talk about it. Outside the family, I have been invited to various places to talk about my experiences as a hibakusha or an A-bomb survivor, but I have hardly ever talked about it at home. Well, you can't talk about the A-bomb all the time, but once in a while we heard about it.
ただ主人がよく会合に出ますからね。会合に出た時の状況なんかはうちへ帰ってよく話します。
My husband attends various meetings, and afterwards he'll tell about it, but mainly only to me, not to the rest of the family. Just when we're alone, upstairs.
まあ私だけぐらいじゃないでしょうかね。全部の人に話すっていうことなくて、ただ2階で2人でいる時にそういう話よくしますからね。
さっき森さん話したくないというふうにおっしゃってましたけれども。
Mr. Mori, why don't you want to talk about the subject among the family? Well, the amount of misery, which is beyond reality, is too much. We have been holding A-bomb exhibitions in various places, displaying these pictures. To be honest, I don't want to stare at these. That's part of it. There are strong voices in Japan urging us to tell the world about the experiences of being exposed to the bomb.
声が強いわけです
Mr.
けれど
Mori,
も、
do you want to forget it?
森さんとしては忘れたいという。
いや、まあ忘れたいっていうか、それはやってますよ。
No. We're trying to transmit our story to other people through various activities, such as the establishment of a group to transmit our stories from generation to generation. We are also appealing to the world to abolish nuclear weapons so that they will never be used again. So I'm fairly active in all that, but my true feeling is that I don't want to talk about it at home. Besides, everyone in the family knows about it already, and we don't really have to keep being told about it.
That's what I was going to ask you, how much family consciousness about the issue of nuclear arms and the purpose of the Bangor base, how much you've discussed that issue as a family up to that point.
We hadn't at all. We, as a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting living on the peninsula. During that period of our time, you know, even though I would think about it, I wouldn't share that with anybody else because you didn't know who you would offend. And all of our friends were living, you know, and working on the different bases. There's Bangor, there's Keyport, there's Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. It's all, you know, a military community. And so if you had feelings that weren't quite in line or in harmony, you really didn't talk about it because you didn't want to offend your friends. And we didn't talk about it in our family.
That was a very strong influence, too, because what was not directly military was indirectly military supported. If you went into the bank, there'd be a sticker at the door welcoming the arrival of whatever ship was pulling into port, or there was influence of the military every place. You go into a shoe repair shop and you'd see a sticker, military discount offered here. Things like this that just a threatening type atmosphere where you didn't feel like saying anything because of the fact that you didn't know who you'd be talking to. And that's when Jerry went through her boss took her through the underground facilities at Lockheed about that same time, and then she shared with me one night what she saw in those facilities and what her boss told her. You feel free in saying that, Jerry?
Well, I know that he mentioned something about the silos in Russia and that our missiles were pointed at their silos. And I said, well, I thought we were using these only as deterrence, you know, as a defense. And he says, you know, I says, you wouldn't ever aim these at people. And he says, well, that would be silly to think that we wouldn't use our missiles where they would have an impact. We wouldn't use them on empty silos. And that wasn't exactly a comforting thought to me. It made me quite disturbed, and you know, that's about the extent of our conversation after that. I didn't question any further. So, and then when I got this response from Al, you know, it kind of affirmed that maybe this wasn't an issue to talk about right now, and I doubt that we even spoke any further on it for another year or so.